Everybody, we're just talking about the convert bonus, continuing from our last discussion. You think we should summarize or?
Sure. You want to do it or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I can summarize. Last meeting, we discussed in depth how to properly parameterize the bonus. Basically what was changed was that the bonus now, instead of having a flat bonus, flat max based off of the difference or the least amount of grown stock grown between the lowest LP token. It is now how would you call this? It is value that increments based off of the difference between the Pinto seeds and the largest LP seeds, multiplied by some scale.
Some new upper threshold, maybe is what you said.
Yeah. There was a threshold for deposits previously that if you were below this threshold based on your grown stock, you're not able to get the bonus. Now the bonus will issue you up to the grown stock of your deposit as a bonus. Effectively meaning you can double your grown stock deposit if you have less than a bonus. I think the last thing we changed was the way in which we ramp up the convert capacity over the course of the season. Now it ramps from 0% to 100% up when the season hits 30 minutes in. And I think the last thing we were discussing was how to properly prioritize the DT min and max, which DT is the scalar that's multiplied by delta P, the 12 delta P, in order to issue the convert capacity.
So we continue. I feel like I cut you off.
What's up?
Did I cut you off?
No.
Okay, so can you pull out that other file as well? Maybe screen share.
Yeah. Let's see. Show two tablets. Ridiculous. Okay.
Right. Awesome. We're only showing this on the right, not the left.
Oh, I see. Let me show my touch right there. You see?
Yeah. Looks good. Great. Okay. Ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
Let's okay, so let's start with the top here. The update that we've already sort of locked in is definitely an improvement over the previous spec. It was the max bonus for an individual. Previously, we'd said that there was some threshold below which you couldn't convert. And so we were preventing sort of new deposits doing the convert manipulation we talked so much about. Where if it converts from A to B are incentivized and you have B, and the incentive is more than the stock that you have on B, you can withdraw, convert B to A, outside of similar deposit A and convert to B, and then increase your grown stock. So instead, our improved solution to that, instead of preventing some people from even being eligible, we make every deposit eligible, but the amount of grown stock bonus that deposit can receive for a given conversion grown stock per PDB of the class. So that's a significant improvement. Now the next questions, if you will, so the next question is how do we set the convert bonus? And relatedly, how do we set the convert bonus capacity? In other words, how much can you convert for a bonus, and what is the max bonus that you can receive for converting? Now, do we have an equation here for the max bonus? Oh, that's the first equation here, it seems. So the bonus will increase. We take the previous bonus and we some multiplier between the difference between the seeds on Pinto and the max seeds for any well. I don't know if it should be any. I guess well implies that it's an LP token. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. But so let's talk about both of these things. First, within the parentheses, why is it seeds Pinto minus max seeds for an LP token? The issue is that if the bonus is increasing more than the delta between seeds, then in practice the seeds become totally ineffective. Seeds are used by the system to create some marginal incentive over time that's realized every season in the form of more grown stock. Hold one asset versus another within the silo. And the here effectively is such that we cannot change the convert bonus for going from A to B. And I think there was an open question. I think we got some resolution on the last call about doing different bonuses for different assets. Maybe we'll kick that can down the side of the road for now. But it seems like that's the upper threshold without really compromising the integrity of the seed mechanism through which we can introduce a bonus. So the question then becomes, what is the multiplier on this bonus rate? And then separately, what is the capacity? How much can you convert? Excuse me. So maybe now let's scroll down just a bit, if you don't mind, and talk about how we currently determine CT. So CT, which for the purposes of this call, represents the convert bonus factor in a season T. The current proposed solution is Can you explain this to me? If the convert capacity is reached, we decrease it by delta C.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put TBD here because I feel like, given how CT was updated, it warrants a discussion on how we actually change this. I feel like we didn't go to that depth last call, but at a high level, what it did was CT would increment when the convert capacity was not reached, and decrement when the convert capacity was reached.
Meaning, like, there is some incentivized bonus up to some amount, and so in a similar way to how we measure demand for other stuff, if the full bonus is sort of sold out, we're close to sold out, and maybe we have to figure out making sure that it's manipulation resistant, that you don't do all but some small amount. Then we can decrease the bonus because there was excess demand for converting at that bonus. And otherwise, we can increase the bonus. At face value, this makes sense. My first reaction is whether or not we want to make it like also have a steady case, such that there's some range of demand for convert capacity that is not going to change the bonus factor.
I mean, I would like to think about this more because CP is now kind of like the rate. We're changing the rate in which the bonus changes. Like once there's once there is demand for converts, we're decreasing C, but the bonus is still very high. The system is still issuing the bonus, it's still increasing the bonus. It's just decreasing the rate in which the bonus is being issued.
Yeah, so why do we do it that way? Like, why not?
What we voted for context before, CT was a scalar on the max PDV, on the max bonus, which it made more sense to scale that based off this C. So I'm trying to, I'm questioning whether CT here is the best way to kind of scale this.
Well, I guess at the margin it's like, let's consider the individual. So they hold some LP, and the system wants them to convert. Now, let's say CT is 1. It's at its max. That would mean that there is no opportunity cost for waiting to convert.
Well, if they feel assured they're able to convert.
Yes, because of the capacity.
Yeah.
So interesting. Very interesting. Because on the one hand, this is very nuanced. On the one hand, if the bonus isn't increasing almost at all, that means that the seeds have their maximum effect. But if the bonus is increasing in line with the seed, that effectively takes away the effectiveness of the seeds. And so at the same time, though, the convert bonus should really come into effect when seeds are not enough. Very interesting here. So I'm kind of thinking out loud here. If we increase, and I guess what the system wants is to be able to incentivize converters when it wants, whenever it wants. And it'll change the seeds, but even after it changes the seeds, I think we had some other thing with the crop rate having to exceed 100%, right?
Yeah. I mean, because of this formula, for Pinto seeds to be higher than it implies the crop rate has to be.
So there's no bonus until the crop rate hits 100%. Crop rate hits 100% or higher. Now the bonus can increase, but still an open question as to how much we really want to incentivize the bonus. Now, the thing I'm trying to figure out is at the margin, how does the potential for increasing the bonus? I guess it doesn't have a negative effect because you're always going to be better off holding the seat. You're always going to be better off doing the conversion to get the higher seats, which is already defined here. And so the point is, the only question is how much does the system have to pay at the margin to get the marginal converter, which we don't know. So there's some bonus that the system has to pay that it needs to pay in order to attract the marginal converter. The good thing is that unlike with the temp or when the protocol overpays, it puts the system in a worse position. In this case, there's a lot less downside to overpaying from the perspective of if the system overpays, if anything, that just makes it such that the converter has more stock than everyone else. And that has two effects. One, that really incentivizes people to convert. And two, as a secondary effect, if other people are converting and increasing their stock, it also really increases the.
What you're saying, the converter with the bonus?
The converter with the bonus is incentivized to convert.
Well, they still have less stock than a person who's acting with the line with the stock making strategy.
Right. What do you mean?
Like we said, this bonus, even at its max, is designed such that even the person who is acting aligned as for Pinto's last comment, the person who converts first will have a better bonus or will be better off than the person who's waiting for the bonus.
Definitely. So there's already this natural incentive to convert, which is great. But there's clearly been demonstrated a preference for some people to hold LP over Pinto. And so the question is, in those circumstances, how much can the system really incentivize people to convert? And I guess with the thing I'm trying to zone in on is what is the problem with increasing the bonus super fast?
Increasing the rate.
I'm saying let's put CT aside. Let's say just taking theoretically, what if we just remove CT and we just made that the bonus? Where now it's like for some individual, and I'm just talking out loud here just for ideating. For some individual, they get the equivalent as a one-time extra payment. What this would do is make it such that if there were infinite capacity, there would be no incentive to convert. But because we're going to have limited capacity, it does function as like a one-time bonus. But the issue there is that then it kind of becomes a game of chicken where
you want to stay in the LP. Let's say you're a guy who wants LP exposure, but you want Pinto seeds. If CT is not implemented, the user incentivized to stay in LP as long as possible until the crop ratio is below 100%, in which they don't get the at that point they want to convert at 100% and they convert back to LP and get more seeds again. Right? The time in which the crop ratio is above 100%, the person with the larger LP incentivized to stay in the LP. If they feel so, we said again, the capacity is infinite.
Exactly. Now, let's say that we introduce some limited capacity. Without capacity, this doesn't work. Right? Really fucks up the seed incentive. But if we introduce some capacity and say it's pretty tight, and this is, I guess, where things get a little tricky at the margin. Like right now, this is going to be a complex discussion. Right now, there is no decrease of the bonus.
The bonus always increases, yes.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
Well, there's a reset, but we haven't discussed that either. But yeah.
I mean, I guess it does kind of make sense though. Like, the protocol, something happens, there's some trigger. In this case, it's the crop ratio getting greater than 100%, such that the system now really wants converts. Right? As soon as the crop ratio exceeds 100%, the system is saying it really wants converts. And so the bonus should, in theory, keep increasing until there's enough converts. The problem with that is that even if we have some capacity per season, assuming that capacity resets, there is a pretty high incentive to wait from the perspective of the bonus that you're going to get. Will keep going up. Now, it is going to go up less than what you would have gotten if you converted now, but you have already expressed a preference to hold the LP. So it's like, if you've already expressed a preference to hold the LP and I actually get more bonus for waiting, I'm going to wait. So it doesn't work. So we do need some way to decrement the bonus itself.
Sorry, can you summarize?
Sure, I can try.
I lost you.
Yes. The marginal user that is holding LP when the crop ratio is greater than 100%, as it currently stands, has expressed a preference to hold LP over Pinto. So much so that even earning the greater seeds, such that you get stock over time, is not sufficient. People are still holding Pinto. If we make the bonus ever increasing, and capacity will, even if I can convert over time, it's fine. I don't care. I'm not in a rush, right? I'd rather hold LP. If the convert bonus just increases until we've reached our target or whatever, we just increase. I, as an LPer that has a preference to hold LP, as a depositor that has a preference to hold LP, you're literally telling me that the more I wait, which I already want to do, I'm going to get a bigger bonus.
Well, it's not really a bigger bonus. It's like,
it is a bigger bonus.
It's a bigger bonus on an absolute perspective. But
yeah, but that's the only thing that matters, because I'm already, if the seeds were enough to get me to convert, I would have already converted. So that's not enough. So now we're trying to introduce a bonus, like, can we give you a one-time trigger to convert right now? Well, how much would we have to pay to convert right now? And I'm saying that if that person knows that if they pass, the convert bonus is going to go up no matter what anyone else does. They're just going to wait. And therefore, we have to decrease the bonus if the bonus sells out.
It definitely increases the incentive to convert if I know the stock bonus will decrease.
Because then it's like, even if it may continue to increase thereafter, but you don't know, which is one thing which totally changes the game theory. But two, there is like a one-time hit such that it's like, okay, now I'm not even just losing the seeds that I was already comfortable losing. I'm losing some extra absolute value of stock, which is like an extra seed loss. Now, we don't expect that to be as much of a difference as it is the fact that I may not get the bonus in the future. That's the issue. So it's like, in order to really make this thing work, we have to show people the bonus, but present them with a decision where it's like, if they don't act now, it's very possible that they're not going to get to act in the future. So this does still create a bit of a game of chicken where it's like, why would I? So everyone's waiting until it's a good enough bonus for them, which resembles the field a lot. And what we've learned from the field is that the solution to that is to offer a small amount of convert per season. And so this is where we start to get more clarity on how this is actually supposed to work. It's like the bonus itself needs to go up or down based on demand relative to the capacity.
Yeah. Totally agree. But it feels like we could adjust. I guess we could either adjust the rate of increase or the rate of decrease with C. Like when there is more consecutive seasons, the bonus selling out, like the convert capacity can decrement much faster.
But it's not just about the capacity, it's literally the amount.
The amount of power.
Sorry, what you were saying?
I was just saying that, in this formula here, we have no decrement here. It seems like we could set this to like anything with a flat scalar of anything less than 1, and that'll be pretty good. But I'm wondering if you can use CT as a scalar to decrease it when the converse capacity has been reached.
So for now, at least, and maybe we can simplify it and only have one factor. I propose that we have a second factor here.
Very sorry, let's finish your sentence. So second factor.
So we still want to change the bonus. How much do we change the bonus every season? That should be relative to this C delta that we've already talked about. And how aggressively to change the bonus is something we want to be able to toggle so we can keep CT. But separately, we need something else that takes this value and increases it or decreases it.
Yeah. Also scale. I mean, right now we're just going to have a scalar. We have no idea what that value is.
Well, I'm just a little exactly. I'm concerned. I'm thinking about where to put the scalar such that we can like have that be the master, where it's like, if that says to decrement, we don't even increase. So like, if that says to decrement, maybe it can just be that CT could even be negative. Is the point?
Yeah. Like minimum 1 max, or minimum -1 max of 1.
Something like that.
But that
this gets confused, yeah, because it's like we really want to talk about magnitude of the change different from direction of the change. So I do think a second scalar makes more sense here. Do you want to add like a BT or something? Or we already have B, I guess. Add whatever variable.
Well, you want it to be independent. Like you don't want it to, I'm not sure you want to multiply this entire term by another variable, which is the magnitude of direction.
I'm not sure if we want to multiply stock for PDV T minus 1, if you know what I mean. I don't know how we want to make it.
Like adding a term to here that represents direction.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we want the direction, like the decrement to be the same magnitude as the increment. I guess is the issue.
I've never seen it used. It's like, oh, Jesus. Okay.
Minus, what is G here?
This value we haven't determined yet. Then what is ET? ET is the scalar of which we decrease, or rate of decrease. Where CT is like the rate of increase, UT is the rate of decrease.
Remind me what G is again.
G is like how much the system is incrementing by. We haven't figured this out yet. GT to ET is this term to G.
Sure, I'm happy to leave that for now. I'm not sure that this is the, like, at this point, my inquiry is around. So let's maybe clear what the question is and then check and bookmark it to come back, because I don't think we have the facts that we need or the stuff figured out to figure this out. So to be clear, the question is, we figured out now the max that we can increase the bonus. And we're suggesting that we're going to have some capacity every season, TBD how we set that capacity. But if the bonus sells out or comes close to selling out, we want to decrement the bonus on an absolute basis. Open question as to how absolute. We want the literal bonus to come down.
Yeah, but like, does it have to be absolute relative to like we haven't discussed that.
What do you mean relative?
Like go down by 10%.
Oh, sorry. I just meant like on a net basis, we want it to go down. Is what I mean. It's unclear how we make it go down. So I think the next question that it makes the most sense to dive into here.
Make it a little simpler. Maybe we can bookmark this.
Right. How do we make it go down? Unclear. Yeah. But I don't know if it's minus G. I don't know if we should have a G multiple. There's a lot of different logic we could use here, but for now it's fine. I think the logic will be influenced by how we set these other things. So let's talk about kind of set CT and DT properly. If the system is not selling out the bonus, it at some level it wants to increase the bonus by the max.
Or wants to increase it faster.
I'm sorry?
It wants to increase it faster.
If it wants converts, it wants to increase the bonus by the max.
If it does or does it does.
I'm saying like the bonus already only comes into play when the system wants converts, prop rate greater than 100. So by definition, it wants converts. At some level, if it wants converts, the thing that it wants is just to increase the bonus as much as possible in order to incentivize the price discovery on the bonus as quickly as possible.
Why does it want to do it as fast as possible?
It wants converts.
It wants converts, but it doesn't want.
It wants to find the price that it needs to incentivize enough converts as quickly as possible. Why wait?
Well, this goes back to like another discussion. I mean, I guess this is where the penalty would come in, but
what does it have to do with the penalty?
Like, we've seen when the system incentivizes converts so fast, it just drains liquidity.
Well, this to me is a different question, which is when does the system want to incentivize converts? This is an issue with the crop rate. That's not, I don't think that's the same as this discussion. For me, the premise of this discussion, we're using a bonus to convert. Therefore, the system really wants converts.
We're already at the point where the system wants converts.
It wants converts. The whole point of a bonus is, it already tried making the seed much higher. Still, people have a preference for LP. Now we're trying to figure out what else can the system do to compel you to convert, right? And everyone is probably going to have some price at which they would convert. And it's particularly interesting from the perspective of like, you can say, I really want to hold LP, but if everyone else is converting and getting a big bonus, you're going to want to convert too, because everyone else is getting this bonus and you basically lose relative to them at that point. So you're losing on seats continuously, but then you're also losing this one-time bonus. So at some level, in order for the system to maximize its ability to incentivize converts, it really wants CT to be equal to 1. Now, I'm just thinking about whether or not we want to have just CT be a fixed one and remove CT, or whether we want to have CT like ramp up over time. So it's like the system starts increasing the bonus some fraction of what it could increase the bonus by, and it slowly ramps up until it finds, until it reaches the point at which the conversion starts to occur.
I mean, for me, if CT is 1, it's mirroring the magnitude in which the system's expressing converts. Like, if the comp ratio is like 101%, it's increasing the bonus the same magnitude as the seeds are. And that will ramp up over time as well. So you can have like 2 ramp up effects.
Why not?
No, why not? What do you mean?
You said you can't have two.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying there's 2 effects happening. We have the ramp up of CT and the ramp up of crop ratio. I guess once crop ratio stays static, then you only have a singular ramp up. I'm just commenting that there already is some sort of ramp up period with the crop ratio increasing over time. Like the system expressing desire to convert is already this effect where it ramps up over the course of multiple seasons. Like maybe you want to have CT ramp up after the ramp up once the system reaches max crop ratio.
Well, the reason why you would not want to do that is because the system almost prefers, not that it really has a preference, but at some level, I feel like it prefers to incentivize converts at lower seeds.
Totally.
Like it would rather give you a bonus to convert and then not have to make the seeds so disproportionate. I don't know if in practice that actually makes a difference though. Like the system doesn't really care, is the thing. Like why does it care if the seeds are 200% or 100%? It doesn't matter. The protocol is totally neutral on that number. Protocol cares about the L2SR and the debt level, but the crop rate itself is like the temp, and not even like the temp. The temp is a higher interest rate, which the system would prefer a lower interest rate. The crop ratio is different. Like it really doesn't care. I guess the system would prefer at the margin for a lower crop rate at the same equilibrium, but that would just mean that people have a preference to hold LP less at the margin, which it's like it's actually unclear if the system really cares about that. So we digressed a bit, but I guess the point is, I'm trying to think of a good argument to ramp up CT over time. And I think it maybe just has to do with the idea of
how aggressive the system wants to incentivize converts. But you're stating that we're already in this spot where the system is already in a very point where it wants to be very aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, by that perspective, I'm in agreement the C can be just 1, but I mean, I could totally see where at different altitudes, CT can be slower, lower, higher, Like rather than having CT change over obviously if the system is more liquid, it should be able to ramp up much faster than well.
Why?
You're very low liquidity.
So the system wants converts. It's already expressing it wants converts.
Well, maybe it's like, I would say it's more riskier and lower L2SRs to increase it faster than when you're higher L2SR.
Why? Oh, sure. But the system already said it wants to take the liquidity and return to pay. It wants to take the liquidity and it wants to have enough conversions to return to pay.
I mean, I feel like maybe it's still binary. You say like at any crop ratio above 100%, the system is already like it's actually wants to convert But I feel like this is a magnitude nuance, with the crop ratio.
I don't know, man. For me, like once the crop rate is greater than 100%, the system is explicitly favoring holding Pinto over any LP, saying there's no reason why anyone should be holding LP. It wants people to hold Pinto. It's asking people. It's saying it will pay you a premium to hold Pinto. People are saying, no, I'd still rather hold the LP.
Then why, for example, why not have it? Why doesn't the crop ratio just jump to 150% the moment it does that?
Because we don't know the relationship between the seeds, the price of the seeds, at which point people will convert. So the reason that we would want to scale up CT is if we wanted to first have price discovery on just the seeds.
I mean,
I don't think that we do.
Marginal, yeah. I mean, yeah, we try to find a price for seeds here. But yeah, like you said, the downside of over-issuing stock is much less than over-issuing debt in the field.
My gut reaction is that we can get rid of CT altogether.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. The only reason to have CT lower than 1, I mean, at the margin would be if the system wants to preserve stock. But at this point, it seems that like the system is incentivized to convert so much, it's down to I think the trade-off space is pretty.
And it's not even actually saving any stock. It's literally just offering a one-time up to the capacity as if they'd already converted. It's super marginal, the extra stock that's being distributed to you. So like, why not just do the max? Why not have the bonus be as strong as it can be?
I mean, if the CT is at its max, then we really need to hold down on D. Like D is the only reason why people are going to convert.
Yeah. So, for now, you don't have to necessarily adopt just yet. Let's assume CT is 1 constant.
Oh, no, sorry, you're right. 100%. If CT is at its max, then the two things that will disincentivize someone to just hold it.
What do you mean CT? Yeah.
The capacity and the G. So that's our two levers.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like that.
Great. So let's move on as if we've removed CT. Now we have to figure out the capacity.
We're doing the capacity exercise as if G doesn't without G.
Well,
Just figure out
G
which is better.
is depending on the capacity, whether we should change the bonus.
G is dependent on the capacity being reached in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and we may change the capacity based on demand, and we will change the bonus based on it. So it's like first thing we have to do is figure out how much supply to issue in a season. I guess the starting point is we want a pretty small amount. I'm curious, even if you look, go ahead.
Figure out max, it should be pretty small. Relatively small. Yeah, sorry.
What were you saying?
I feel like even at the max, it should be pretty small relative to delta P. Is it pretty small? What is your anchor point?
A la the soil, how we have very small amounts of soil.
Yeah, very small percentage of delta P.
So, this is a digression, but can you remind me what we did on the right?
This is, basically one insight is that if you convert some percent of delta P every season, it'll slowly approach its value target in end seasons. And this graph here is to determine, given a percentage of delta P converted, and how many seasons will it hit some threshold within value target. So the blue would be what would be the number of seasons if we're within 2%, purple is 5%, and black is 10%. And then these blue lines here, which is the y-intercepts or the x-intercepts, is like, given this percentage of delta P, what would be that number of seasons?
Hold on, I'm a little confused. What's the x-axis?
The percent of delta P that's being converted every season.
Got it. And then the y-axis is the number of seasons that it takes to reach
some percentage within delta P. So like,
got it.
So this one, if 2% was issued every season, it was converted, and 128 seasons, it'll hit within 2% of delta P, assuming everything else is equal.
Awesome. This is very interesting. So what this sort of, I guess where we left this discussion was that we potentially want to.
We want to base our max capacities based off of its target number of seasons. We want to get closer to the value target. Or we find that to be a good estimation, a good way to estimate this capacity.
Yeah. So maybe for now, just for simplicity, let's say that this is some fixed number. Where we say, okay, like we want to reach within 2% of delta V in X seasons. Therefore, this is the convert bonus capacity, right?
Correct.
So now I'm trying to figure out. I mean, so I guess that is a whole separate can of worms, like properly setting that value. How many seasons do we want and how close do we want to get? But for now, let's say that that's just constant, right? Let's say that it's just some fixed amount. If it's some fixed amount of delta B, I mean, I guess the thing I'm now coming to, and this is getting very complicated, the cultivation factor. How we in order to try to get the thing to sell out in the field, what we do is we limit it super tightly to start and then ramp it up. But in that case, the system really wants the lowest price. And it will wait for the lowest price.
Yeah, it's much more incentivized to issue as low debt as possible.
Well, it's like a issue as low a price of the debt as possible.
Yeah, sorry, most efficiently.
Yeah. Whereas here, it is more like it just wants to. Once we trigger the bonus already, it's saying we want to return to pay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where we get to choose how fast it wants to, how aggressive it wants to go back to its value target. I think this is us setting the magnitude of its willingness to get back to its value target.
So it seems sort of like what we're indicating is that we can probably set the convert capacity just based on this value. Really two values. How close do we want to get to the thing and how much time do we want it to take? And then we should really like lock that in based on the largest delta P or whatever. Between rebags or something like that.
What you were saying?
Oh, I guess the way this is set up is that it's a recurring delta.
Yeah, it gets smaller. It recursively gets smaller. I mean, I think in practice we would add a minimum. We add a minimum capacity such that once we're within like 0.05% of delta P, you're able to just take the last bonus and repeg.
I'm wondering if instead of this log curve, if we want to just cut it into uniform intervals. We want to repeg 200 seasons. We take the delta P and we just divide it by 200.
You want to make it linear like that? Why?
I'm just thinking about it. Like why if we're at 90 cents, we start incentivizing some threshold. But then as we get closer to that peg, we start incentivizing less bonus.
Oh, I see.
Why do we want to do that?
You want this percentage to be a function of delta P.
Well,
right now it's just all relative to delta P, but we're not taking into account the magnitude of delta P right now.
Well, we are, but I'm suggesting that.
What is a normalized delta P?
Yeah, this is I guess maybe the way I'm thinking about it is like, this is the delta P right now, which is a function of the previous converts capacity incentive already. Whereas potentially you could imagine just doing it as like whatever the max delta P was in this cycle.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, it's hard to know because, in this, like you want the delta P, but delta P is also a function of supply. Like, for example, the delta P of our system has gone down in magnitude over time. But that's because a lot of LP has moved on. So if we log the highest delta P, which is like 400,000, onto a smaller system with lower L2SR, I think that's where that breaks.
Why? It's like, let's say that we say we want to repeg in 200 seasons, right? And delta P was 400,000. Now it's 200,000.
But the linear just doesn't work.
No, it does. It's just we'd still be at 2,000 a season instead of 1,000. That's all it would be. But let's say let's take the current example. Max delta P was 400,000. We're now at 200,000. If it were linear and we wanted to get there 200 seasons at 400,000 max, we would set the bonus capacity at 2,000 per season. So even at 200,000, we would still be at 2,000. Whereas if we did it at in the way that we're suggesting here, it would go down to 1,000 or something. I guess it would be more than 1,000 because
it would reach the capacity faster than 200 seasons. It reach 100 seasons.
It would reach the capacity. What is that?
It would reach a value target in 100 seasons. If delta P is 200,000, and we're still initializing the capacity based on 400,000,
I guess I'm just talking about the distribution of the thing. Like, if you think about how much convert capacity would be available in the first season, it's a lot. And then it goes down.
In the first season.
The way we have it here, the first season is the most.
Totally.
And it's like, that grows exponentially as delta P grows was the issue. I guess not exponential, but it's like a linear thing where it's disproportionately weighted to be the first, which I don't think benefits a snowball effect.
You're incentivized to wait until delta P is at its max.
It's not even about incentivized. It's just that the threshold, like this is super at the margin, but it's like we're trying to get the first bonus participant. Right? We're trying to price the bonus. So the question on everyone's mind is when is the bonus going to start to decrease? Everyone's trying to wait until the bonus starts to decrease, right?
if the threshold for the bonus to decrease is super high at the start, that will cause the system to have to wait longer.
Oh, you're saying when delta B is at its highest, the converter capacity is at its highest. That means the first converter has to convert a lot.
In order to get it to go down. So it kind of feels like the incentive there breaks a little bit. Like, why not just have a fixed amount?
Well, I feel like that's different from the capacity versus like the threshold or the criteria in which the convert capacity decreases.
Well,
Like if we have some, if we like if we
I
have,
thought we said it was that it sells out, right?
I'm saying that you're making the distinction or making the comment that when someone converts for the first time, we want that to have a large effect. With the
Not even a large effect.
Or
We want people to be scared that they're gonna miss the boat.
Yeah, I'm saying, and you're saying that at the first time someone converts, when delta P is at its lowest, the
Capacity is gonna be gigantic because of how we have it done here.
and you're saying that will cause it to take a while for the convert capacity to actually decrease.
That will cause it a while. The bonus will have to increase a lot. And it may not even work that well. Because again, it's like we want to make it such that people are scared that it's going to go down.
Well, why don't we just start? This is where the min comes in, where we start the capacity to be very, very, very small. So even at very high delta P's, the convert capacity is small enough such that it's a reasonable amount to start the snowball.
That's not what we have.
How's this not what we have here?
Generally, we have the capacity start at the highest value and then decreases.
That's a good point. No. We started at the lowest, and then ramp it up over time.
No, it's the opposite.
Really?
In this formulation, the approach as we get into the later seasons, the amount of bonus capacity decreases because it's still a function of the distance.
On an absolute basis.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm saying the whole point of DT is to have the capacity start on a percent basis very small and increase that over time. Such that on an absolute basis, it should increase. It should increase over time, but also like keep it, account for this.
For me, DT is more helpful to think of it as like relative to delta P, how much capacity do we want?
Yeah, I'm saying at high delta P's, and when the convert capacity hasn't been started yet, we should start delta P at DT to be very, very low.
So in my mind, the way we want to have that effect is have the number of seasons that it would take to start by.
It's effectively the same. Well, no, you want the seasons to start high.
No. Oh yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
It's the same thing in practice.
It's not. It's not.
How's it not the same thing in practice?
Because here there would be more capacity.
No, if we start at high, if the seasons are very high, then we're starting at 0.005.
I'm not wrong.
You're saying we should optimize DT around when the convert is initialized, number of seasons to return to a value target should be very low, should be very high.
Convert is initialized. The number of seasons.
Number of seasons to return to value target should be this very high number.
Yeah.
That's effectively what a low percent delta P is.
Let's just slow it down. The high number for just seasons to return to peg would result in a smaller amount of capacity at the beginning.
It would lead to a smaller, if we want to target X seasons, to do that, we use a percent delta P.
No. Let's say that let's instead of having the number of seasons that we want to return to the target be fixed as 200, let's say that that's varied.
Okay.
in that framework where we start the variable is very high, the amount of seasons that it would take if we got the max convert capacity would be very long. But the result is that the amount of capacity available is small. And therefore, the amount of capacity needed to sell out, the amount of convert needed to sell out also is small, such that the bonus itself could then come down. So the incentive there works something like we start with a small amount of convert capacity, and we basically, if it sells out, we ramp up the capacity and we lower the bonus. And if it doesn't sell out, we either keep the capacity the same or we decrease the capacity, open question there. And we increase the bonus. The key, though, is, and the distinction between this one, is that in that framework, you start with the smallest amount of soil and ramp up. Sorry, not soil. Smallest amount of convert capacity. We're going to need some other term for soil, a soil equivalent. You have a, like in that framework, you start with the lowest convert capacity. In this framework, you start with the highest convert capacity.
Okay, I would say I think we're aligned, but I feel like nowhere here we imply that we're starting at a low to high. Like for me, this blue was the starting point, and this green is the ending point. So I feel like it can be that bi-directional.
But the high to low element comes from the fact that the delta P is changing.
No, the high to low element, I mean, it comes both. It comes from the fact that, one, the percent delta P is increasing over time. The percent delta P, the DT is increasing over time.
What? You lost me.
If we start at 0.005, it will always reach X amount of seasons to return to value target. And the whole point of increasing DT is to increase this percent delta P such that the amount of seasons to return to value target is much, much lower.
I must confess I'm a little confused. Can you just slow it down for me a little bit?
So like here, we're starting at a capacity of 3% delta P. It will return to value target in 128 seasons. Right?
No. Sorry. This is saying 3% of delta P every season. It'll take 128 seasons to return to 98% of the, yes, 98% of the peg.
Whereas for this blue line, it was, at 0.005%, it will take 780 seasons to return back to the value target. Normalized, this is all normalized to delta P. Independent of the magnitude of delta P, it could be 1, a million, whatever. It will take this amount of seasons to return its value target.
Totally. But regardless, isn't it the case that the early seasons will have disproportionately more capacity than the later seasons?
On an absolute basis, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah, I'm saying that we're using DT to avoid that. We're using the whole starting when the bonus starts. We start DT at a very small percentage to, counteract that when the bonus starting, ideally, the delta P is at its max, as low as possible. I guess you're saying that we need to account for the fact that, at this range, delta P is going to be very high, and at this range, delta P is going to be very low.
Yeah, and therefore, just naturally, the effect is that it's going to be harder to sell out at the beginning. Now, you're saying that's okay. We can cover that by ramping up to that with DT.
Yeah, we can make, if we're really worried about capacity not being able to sell out.
But this is where, for me, it's a little bit difficult. It's like, do we want the capacity to sell out? Like, no, we want to return to peg in a certain time. That's what we want.
Well, I feel like having it sell out, it's a much more likelihood of guaranteeing it, creating a snowball effect to return to peg.
So let's say sells out, but then we're going to lower the bonus and increase the capacity.
Like I feel like, of course, one target is the amount of season to return to the value target, but I think the ultimate goal is to create a system just like the field, such that it's always selling out. Like that to me is more important because at least like if it sells out every season, eventually it'll return back to.
I would still propose, even if we want to have some DT that ramps up, which is an interesting idea, that fundamentally it's still better to equally distribute every season, not have it be dependent on how delta P changes. Like I'm suggesting that we set the capacity as a function not of the current delta P, but the max delta P in this cycle.
Why? How does that give us a more accurate representation of how many seasons it takes to return to the value target? Like for me,
It's not that it gives you a more accurate representation. Both are correct. It is that at the margin, the capacity at the end is just so small compared to at the beginning. I think a more uniform distribution of capacity makes more sense. And we can still ramp it up with something like a DT. We can. I don't know if we need to, but we can.
And you're worried that when it's so tiny, it won't have an effect. Like when we're at the max.
Well, it's different than that. It's like because the way that we're calculating this factors in these seasons where there's much less happening. At the beginning, we're going to offer too much. It's not about the trade-off at the end. Like once we're close to the value target, it doesn't matter. It's at the trade-off at the beginning. Our capacity is going to be too high. We want a lower capacity at the beginning. And to that, you say, well, we can just ramp up to the max, which is true. But I'm suggesting we may not even need to ramp up to the max. We could just have it be some percent.
Based on the max.
Based on the max and the time to time to return to peg. And that we can make more variable as well.
But that's the time to return to the value target, assuming
max converts.
Max converts, where it assumes I see. So that's like the upper floor. I think that's the upper ceiling.
Yeah.
200 would be like, if delta P was locked in at 400 and it decreased to 200 by the field or something else, 200 would be still that ceiling that we're trying to target.
Yeah. I think the truth is that either works. I don't see a major difference with either of them, candidly, if we have some DT ramping up as well.
Which one's more safer? Which one's more like at the margin?
I don't know what you mean by safer.
Which one has a larger downside? I'm trying to figure that out. You identify the downside of this one, where
neither of them have real. It's not downside. It's just at the margin. Like, do you want to have your max capacity?
This one is that if we set this minimum delta DT to be high, such that even at a very, very high delta P, the threshold to start the snowball is too high. But I guess that's both.
It's both. That's what I'm saying. It's just a margin. Do we want it to scale down or not?
Let's see, scaling down with snowball. Yeah, maybe with this one.
Like the snowball, the idea of the snowball is it should scale up. So that's where it's like, we do the DT thing, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, I guess your commentary is that because the delta P is variable, like even if we ramp up DT, let's say in one season, the delta P decreases more than the ramp up of DT, such that overall there's less capacity.
Sure. I mean, that's an edge that I don't think we're going to hit almost ever, but that's
Oh, that was
the direction of where we're going.
that was like the commentary here.
The commentary is just that I would rather offer the same capacity if we're really trying to get to target in a certain number of seasons. Like, why are we going to, instead of doing 4,000, 3,900, 3,800, 3,700?
I thought what's going to happen though. It's going to be like 4,000, and then delta P decreases, but the DT increases, so then the capacity still increases overall.
But put DT aside. Like, DT is something that we can do on both of them.
Okay.
So then it's just saying our base line, our base algorithm is saying instead of 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 4,000, 3,900, 3,800, 3,700, 3,600.
Got it. I mean, to me, I feel like that expresses the the protocol's magnitude decreasing as it gets too close to the value target.
Sure.
It needs to be no volatility. It should be less willing to express more, like give a bonus where you're close to the value target.
But willing to give bonus is different than how much can you convert.
Like the same thing. I mean, the amount of capacity you issue determines how much the protocol is willing to adjust the bonus at an absolute basis. Like, let's say we're like so close to the value target, and we have a huge bonus. You're saying that like this makes magnitude, or I guess this is away from value target, not a factor, right? You're saying that at 50 cents versus 99.5 cents, it's willing to give the same capacity bonus in terms of capacity.
If it's in the same cycle.
Yeah. And I feel like, we've kind of seen that there are certain areas where the system does want to like change the incentive based off. I don't know if we've ever done this. Well, I guess except for soil, but we never really, the model has not taken account distance from its value target as a parameter. I guess this is like one of them.
This is just max delta P. That's the point. Instead of delta P.
Yeah, I get that's the point, but I don't understand how.
You just said the system hasn't done it. I mean, I don't think there's. I truly see them as very comparable. I don't see them as being a big difference. I think we have to think a little bit more about it. The other thing is whether we have some DT ramp up. That seems to be the sort of the only open question left. Well, I guess there's more. Like, then how do we actually, assuming that we sell out, how much do we decrease the stock and stuff? How do we actually implement that? So we're running into the end of the scheduled time. What's your preference for Should we summarize where we're at so we can pick this back up? It's hard to imagine we resolve this in 10 minutes. So even if we extend it at 30 minutes, this time just flew by. I
mean, yeah, the only thing we really did was add a G, and we removed CT here, or cap it to 1. As we said that, once the bonus is already being issued, the system is already expressing that it wants to return to its value target. So CT is capped here. We had the insight that without some way for the protocol to decrease its maximum bonus, the user is incentivized to wait. Because they always know the bonus is going to increase. So by introducing some way for the protocol to decrease its bonus, now the user is much more incentivized to convert, further, like be the first convert.
Yeah, so open question as to how to do the decrease. Do we leave it as just some minus G? Do we do it as, on a relative basis where we multiply the bonus, by like 0.5 or something? Unclear. That's an open question. And then the other open question is, there's two other open questions. How do we, maybe it'd be good for us to write the open question so we know where we left it. What do you think?
We have granola.
What?
We have the AI.
Great. Shout out to AI. The next thing is when we're setting the time, like how many seasons do we want to return to the value target and within how much? One thing that's interesting is if we do linear instead of this log, we don't have to even do within how much. We can just make the system a function of how many seasons. If that makes sense. But we can, it's not a big trade-off there. But so one question is, how do we determine how many seasons we want to return to the value target in and how to change that? That currently seems like the best thing to do is start it higher up and then decrease it as the capacity fills up. And then there's separately this other element, which we're currently calling DT, which is, with respect to the snowball, should we start, even if we have a high, I guess this is related to the seasons. Like we can fix it at 200 seasons, or we could implement this where we started at 1,000 seasons and then decrease it over time. Or we could have DT work in such a way where it's like, we use the log scale such that it's pretty much fixed based on delta P. But then we ramp it up from 0 to 1 of that or something. So those are the current open questions. You got anything else to add?
No, that was a great summary.
Jeez Louise, this shit is deep. But fun. All right, gang. Thank you for those who listened or listened to the recording. Talk soon.
Talk soon, everybody.